Hello everybody, today we're going to be looking at Mythic Nythendra. So this is the first boss in Emerald Nightmare. It is a decently easy boss. We did kill this on our second raid night on the boss. Our raid group isn't too geared, so this is a good first kill. And we are a new guild this expansion, so I'm quite happy with our progress so far. But yeah, so we're just gonna be looking at what I do as a disc priest in this fight, what role I kind of take, and how we go on performance. So basically, what I'm trying to do in this fight is just make sure none of these rots die, and just calling out. Like I do raid lead in these guilds, so um, just trying to call out what mechanics are going off. So um, what role I'm basically filling in our healer team is I'm just spot healing the rots when they come out, just making sure I apply atonements, and then keeping as much damage going out onto the boss as I can. So I believe at the end of this I was doing about 128k DPS or something. I don't know. It was rank third world, so it's pretty high. I did die in the end, so it should be, I think it was like 138k before I died. But yeah, so that's just kind of an idea of how much disc is putting out at the moment. It's fairly significant. Obviously, with the trinket nerfs, it's not as high as it could be or was in the beta, but it is still quite impressive, and their throughput is amazing. So if you decide to be taking the innovates for your group, the amount of like throughput you can put out with rapture, applying atonements to everybody, and then doing a big Lightswrath with a penance is insane. So the basic idea for this fight is when you get 10 stacks of the rot debuff, you're going to get mind controlled. The strategy we chose for this is just have a marker in front of the boss. You can see Moon there, and that's where we run when we get 10 stacks. And then we leave, there's two kind of spots in the room we leave clear, so the whole raid's kind of spread out. So that is around Moon and just where I'm standing right now. So during that phase, we get everybody to pretty much not damage the boss and just try and dodge as much stuff as we can. Which you see there. So I kind of run off. I use my movement spells to heal, and I try and just shadow mend people who are low. So you can see here we're making sure we're using every global we can. We're just constantly back-to-back spells. That's the key to Disc Priest, is that you're constantly casting. There's no reason never to stop casting. Having smite on a really easy keybind to press is very important. So you see here the rots come out, I make sure I have atonement on all of them. I'm shadow mending the guy who gets low. And then, easy peasy, no one dies. So I'm standing in a fairly unadvantageous spot to heal in the back of the fight there, because I can only reach about, probably a quarter of the raid. And that's just because we're trying to spread out for the rots, and in that, I can pretty much spot heal anybody in that who runs out into that side very easily. I try and save my halos to hit the mind controls whenever they're up, and I also try and halo for when the volatile rot comes out. It's a fairly big heal on the people it hits. Halo does spread after 10 targets, so it's not too great, but it is a fairly big heal regardless. So here, the breath comes up, we run away from it. What we did find in this fight, there is the rots and the breaths. So we did have a nice little thing where there's always the third rot that comes out. There's going to be a breath straight afterwards. So those rots stand still, so we know where the breath is, and then you move with the rots and that, making sure no one dies. So here again, we're just making sure we just camera down, just make sure we dodge all the bugs, healing whoever we can. It's not my top priority to be healing people here. They shouldn't be taking any damage. The dot won't be killing anybody. The only damage people are taking is when they get slack and not hit any of the bugs. So that's pretty much the entirety of this second phase. It's quite easy if nobody fucks up. And then obviously this pull, no one really fucks up too much, and that's why we get the kill on the boss. So have a look here. So rot comes up. This one will be on 5 targets. So rot, we try and get to the edge. We make sure we have atonement on everybody we can. How far am I going to run? There you go, all the way to the edge. Drop the rot, and then penance back into the boss to run out. So it's fairly simple stuff. Just making sure we're constantly casting. For people who don't know, there's the Dark Moon card right now, which just reduces the mana cost of some of your spells on a random random amount and it just changes every few seconds. So because Disc is constantly casting and Smite is a very low mana cost spell, and it's a very low cast time, the actual trinket for Disc does very well because you don't have any downtime in your spells. So you're not like a Resto Druid where you're casting Wrath half the time because you don't have mana to be using Rejuve constantly. So the Dark Moon card is a pretty much must-have trinket to pick up. And then there's also the Amalgam's 7 Spine, which is a trinket from the first boss in Blackrock Hold. That trinket gives you about 4k mana back every time you cast a Powered Shield or Shadow Mend on somebody when you're not casting it, more than twice. So it's really good in a raid when you want to be casting like a Powered Shield, just pretty much on cooldown. So it's 4k mana back on a Powered Shield. And then it's pretty much 4k mana back on your Shadow Mends. It doesn't sound like a lot of mana, but any mana is good mana, and you pretty much just lose all you're losing to pick that up is about 3 or 4% haste or crit from your stat sticks. There's a lot of people running, the DPS talents, and they're running Horn of Valor for some fucking reason. That is a really terrible talent choice. The only reason people run that is just purely for DPS pad. They just pop that with Power Infusion when it comes up, and then try and get as much damage as they can. So here we go, we fuck up, we kind of run into a corner, we get into a bad spot and get hit by a little imp thing there and die. So that wasn't the best play, but the boss was dead anyway. So that's what kind of happens at the end of this fight when 5 rots are coming out at once. You get stuff everywhere. No one really wants to go stack back in with the rots, so the rots just kind of get out of hand. But nevertheless, we had a few people alive, and that was to kill the boss. So Disc is actually doing really well at the moment. You see a lot of top end guilds picking up Disc. It's really funny to see all these people, going, oh, you just go play Holy. Why would you play Disc? Well, Disc is brought to just as many fights, if even more than Holy at the moment, just because of the exact role they need to fill, where it's you need 4.5 healers or 3.5 healers or something like that. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed. Pretty much all you need to be successful in Disc Priest is just be able to use all your globals effectively. My healing wasn't too high in this encounter, but as you can see, I'm standing off in the corner. I can pretty much only heal a very small portion of the raid the entire time. So that is why my healings are lower. Originally when we were starting this, I was getting around 280k HPS, like just standing, in the middle of the group and healing everybody. But it was better off being me standing in the back. The 2 spot healers we have in this group are the Holy Paladin and me, but we have the Holy Paladin sitting at the front healing their tanks. We have the Resto Druid and the Mistweaver in between the group, just doing the throughput, and then we have me at the back, just making sure the people on the edges get spot healed up, and then obviously I'm doing as much damage as I can. So I'm not playing a very throughput role in this group. If I was, I'd be taking the Innovate off the Druid, and I'd be making sure I get the big Raptures out whenever needed. So Rapture, having the Rapture does use quite a bit of mana as well. So it's not the most effective thing to use if you don't have the Innovate to go with it, but it is still quite a decent cooldown. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. Just let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.